John, this is a big deal. You're putting cars on the road without a safety driver. Talk to me about why you're confident you can do it now.
Well, Mark, we've been at this a very long time. It's been more than 8 years at Waymo, working on fully self-driving cars. We've learned that experience is the best teacher. Over those 8 years, we've driven 3.5 million miles autonomously across more than 20 US cities. We've been learning an awful lot, as you know, in the virtual world, where we've now driven over 2.5 billion miles just last year. And now we're to the point where we're driving really 10,000 miles on a daily basis autonomously in the cities in which we're testing, and 10 million miles every day, representing driving of 25,000 cars every hour of every day. So we've gotten to the point of confidence, and that confidence allowed us to go forward internally with what we just showed the world today in Phoenix, Arizona.
And you've been testing this with your early rider program volunteers in Phoenix for almost 5 months now, I think. Talk to me, how's that program going? What are participants like? What has been the major lesson you've taken away?
Yeah. So we started our early rider program earlier this year in spring. The first signal that we had something special here was the overwhelming demand. We talked about the possibility that these folks could help define the future of mobility. We had over 10,000 applications to join the program within the first 24 hours. And right now we're in this position where there's a lot more demand for seats in our cars than we can actually provide, which isn't a bad problem to have. But we're learning a lot from these guys, right? We're learning about the intricacies of pickups and drop-offs. They've helped us refine that in-car user interface and what we share with those users on the screen. They've helped us determine what the best way is to alert them to the location of the start button, for example, in the roof pod. Those sorts of things, just invaluable pieces of knowledge for our project and for the engineers working at Waymo.
So you said that the commercial service is coming soon. It's going to take the shape of a ride-hailing with a mobile app. It sounds like you're not at the on-site working with Lyft, one of your partners. Any reason for why not working with Lyft?
We've got a lot of partners that we're working with in the space. You mentioned Lyft. We've got FCA, who's working with us on the vehicle side, and AutoNation and Avis to help us with maintenance and fleet management and those kinds of things. We'll share more about what we're doing with our good partner Lyft going forward. What we've talked about is we're going to help each other with the launch of new projects. So I'd say stay tuned for details on that one, Mark.
Okay, sure. You also started testing vehicles recently in Michigan to deal with snowy weather. Talk about what are the next markets? Is it going to be a city like Phoenix, a suburban city that has pretty good, nice weather? Or are you trying to take more challenging areas next? Well, Phoenix is a big place, and there's a lot of interesting and very challenging parts of Phoenix that we'll be driving in, including the downtown area as we roll out our technology. But I think it's a good bet to look at the places that we're testing right now and imagine that those will be likely next candidates for us to roll out truly driverless capability. Something about the truly driverless, what you've talked about in the past, is you are taking the driver out of the front seat. Companies like Uber and Lyft employ a lot of drivers. What do you think about the impact on the jobs for driverless cars, and what responsibility will Waymo play there?
Yeah, I think it's something that all of us in the space really need to think deeply about, for sure. And I guess a couple of things to that point. First is, we're adding a lot of jobs as we're developing this technology. There are a lot of folks who we need, both with our partners, but also at Avis and at Waymo, to maintain these vehicles, to work on our high technology and the LiDARs and the cameras and the radars. So there's going to be a lot of skilled trades positions available at companies like Waymo in the future. The other thing to keep in mind, Mark, is that for the most part, the people who are using our technology right now in Arizona are replacing personally driven miles anyway. And I think the great bulk of the miles that we're going to be driving as Waymo the driver will be replacing miles that folks like us would have driven otherwise.
Talking about a little bit, you mentioned, you sort of hinted at that you're reimagining what the inside of a car will look like. Is that the case, or these vehicles maybe a few years from now won't necessarily look like they do today? Well, just about every car that's ever been put out to the world has been primarily designed for the driver, right, as the primary focal point. It really does open up a lot of interesting possibilities when you imagine no specific driver other than Waymo as the driver, no human driver. And we've sort of taken our first shot at that with our little Firefly prototype. Going forward, yeah, Mark, we can imagine a lot of really interesting possibilities as we expand, and by we here I mean the collective we, all of us working in this space, as we expand to provide more and more applications and use cases for this technology. You can imagine the vehicles also becoming more specialized, and you could imagine a vehicle that might be perfect for just one person. There's another vehicle that might work for a larger group of folks. Some might be designed with sleeping or napping in mind. Some might be sort of food-related cars that you take on your way to a venue. So possibilities there are truly endless in the future going forward.
Lastly, can you talk a little bit what assurances you've given the city officials around Phoenix and Arizona? I mean, you're putting out there this is a big risk for them to have vehicles with no driver in the front seat. It might be kind of a foreign experience to some people on the roads.
Yeah, I think all of the folks we've worked with in the local governments in and around Phoenix and Arizona have been incredibly supportive of the technology. We've worked really hard on our part to explain where we are in our project and the evolution of our technology. We launched the Let's Talk Self-Driving campaign to ensure that there was public awareness of what we were doing and public support for what we're doing. So yeah, that's a really important part, Mark, a really important point, Mark, that we need to work on, ensuring that the public is behind this. And I think that's the sort of thing that gets government officials as well aligned behind the technology. So yeah, we've had great support there.
John, you talked a lot about potential business models. Clearly, you're kind of leading with ride-hailing here. Is there anything that would come after that? Is it trucking, delivery, some partnership with the city?
Yeah, I think we'd want to paint a really broad picture about the possibilities of what we can do with this technology. We're really building a flexible platform that can work in so many different areas. So yeah, it made a lot of sense for us to start with this transportation service because shared mobility is so interesting, and it's a way for us to efficiently get the technology out and really help a lot of users, perhaps those with mobility issues who couldn't otherwise get around, the sorts of folks we're dealing with in our early rider program, those sorts of people. But yeah, otherwise, trucking and logistics, moving packages from place to place, working directly with cities around the world to help solve some of the last mile transportation problems. And we know even for personal use vehicles, there's going to be a role for technology like this. So yeah, I think what we all should do now is think very expansively about what the possibilities can be with this technology. We are leading with this particular service because it makes sense, but I think you'll see that expanding with time.
Great. So it's John Krafcik joining us from Lisbon at the Web Summit. Thanks, John. Really appreciate the time.